Well, the Gonzaga Bulldogs are back out looking to add to their class of 2023. Joining me today to break down the latest targets is Jason Jordan of Sports Illustrated, right here on the Locked On Zags podcast. Don't go away.
You are Locked On Zags, your daily podcast on the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is going on, y'all? Welcome to the Locked On Zags podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host and longtime Gonzaga podcaster, Andy Patton, here to bring you news and updates on all things Zag athletics. I would also like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. All right, it's been a quiet couple of weeks, but it is nice to see the Zags back out looking for some new targets in the class of 2023. I know Gonzaga fans are eagerly awaiting to see if the class of 2023 is going to grow. They only had one player in 2022. That was, of course, Braden Huff. They only have one player so far in 2023. That is Dusty Stromer. But we saw the staff out talking to a handful of other players in that class. We're going to start, Jason, with A.J. Johnson, a player from Donda Academy, high-level point guard. I think you could pick just about any high-level program in the country, and they have at least showed some interest in this kid up to this point. What can you tell me about what kind of player he is?
Well, the funny thing is he and Jalen Green are very, very close, and so they call each other brothers. I actually thought they were brothers. They even they have the same build.
Yeah,
and honestly, they have kind of the same kind of game. If you really watch them, both bring the wow factor, super athletic, definitely gonna have some Sports Center top 10 dunks off the drive. So that's the best part about his game is the way he gets downhill. So ferociously attacking the rim, super athlete, 6'6", long and wiry, and he knocks down perimeter shots too. But I think he's at his best when he's getting downhill, getting to the rim, and spinning off and finishing with creative acrobatic layups, or just putting you on a poster, which is one of his specialties. So, I'm really high on AJ. I think his stock is at the height, but I think it could even go up even more.
Wow. Yeah,
he's good.
We've seen him as a top 20-ish guy by most of the composite rankings out there. Kansas is interested. Louisville's interested. Creighton, Texas. The list, again, probably goes on and on. There's many that I'm sure have checked in on him who aren't even on the list. Any sense on where he's thinking or what kind of program might be best suited for him? Obviously, the Jalen Green comparison doesn't really help us because Green didn't go out anywhere for college. So any kind of sense on where he's at?
I don't think he's I don't think the decision, I don't think he's in a position to say, I don't think he wants to make a decision right away. That's what I've been told. I think he's going to go through the process. And obviously he's a little different because he'll have his pick of the litter.
Sure.
I know he probably wants to go to a high octane offense where he can kind of have a little bit of religious liberties out there on the offensive end, especially. So he probably wants to go somewhere where he has more freedom and able to get up and down and get out and show his abilities in the open court. That's where he's gonna thrive. So I'd imagine that's what his summer was full of that. And certainly a Donda. He's gonna have a little freedom there too.
It's interesting to see how that fits with Gonzaga because certainly they have a high octane offense in the sense that they average more points per game than most teams in college basketball. But the freedom part is maybe a little bit less something that's guaranteed in Gonzaga's offense. We saw somebody like Jalen Suggs, who is probably the most similar player that Gonzaga's had, and they don't have a lot of guys like that all that often. Clearly Suggs succeeded, but I wonder if Johnson would look at Gonzaga as a place where his game would really thrive or not, because I kind of see it going either way.
Yeah, I mean, and that's I was going to say, that's the example they would have to point to.
Sure.
Look what we did with Jalen Suggs, and look
Yeah.
how we developed him, and it worked out really good for him,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's always good to be able to point to those examples because it does help. Players talk about that. They repeat that stuff to me when I talk to them.
Sure.
I mean, look what they did with Jalen Suggs, and that.
Right.
Yeah, and it's rich. It's real. Real is always the best selling point.
Yeah, absolutely. Wanted to move on to another target in 2023 that we saw the Zags show some interest in all the way overseas in Australia. That's Alex Toohey, 6'7", stretch 4, a very talented guy. This will surprise absolutely zero of the Gonzaga fans listening to this, but St. Mary's has already showed some interest here. They have a very rich pipeline with Australian basketball players. Toohey's at the Global Academy over there in Australia. We saw Providence, we saw Iowa State, and then lately it looks like there's been some other even more high major interest outside of just Gonzaga. Obviously an international player, so I'm sure you haven't gotten to see him quite as much as some of the other players, but what do you think about his game?
Yeah, more so seen some of the games online. But I've definitely seen love him from what I've seen. I know he averaged 17, 9, and 6 for the Australian team in the Global Academy. So, but when I watched him, I mean, there's nothing he really can't do on the floor. Like I saw him run the one. I saw him come off screens. I thought, he an amazing playmaker, obviously. But at his height, 6'7", 6'8", you could understand. You watch him for a half, and you understand why the high major blue bloods like you guys and everybody else they're lining up. Drooling at the thought of landing him. Just because he's one of those guys that he's a safe guy on the floor, meaning you put him on the floor and your offense feels safer because you know that at some point he's going to touch it and think good things are going to happen. You know, that's how good he is. And but now we have to see it against our level of competition. Sure, I think you need to see that more. To get a better gauge. I said the same thing with Tyrese Proctor at Duke, even though we saw some of that over on this side, but that's always is that a transferable skill against these guys over here, consistently playing against these guys over here? I think watching Alex, yes. I think watching Tyrese, yes, but we got to see it. Yeah. So I think we probably will in some way over the next year.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads into the next question that I had, which is about these kind of global academies in general. We've talked about international recruiting a handful of times on the show, and certainly certain coaching staffs that seem to be really good at identifying that talent overseas. Obviously, Tommy Lloyd, longtime for Gonzaga, was able to do that really well. I'm quite certain he's going to do it really well at Arizona as well. But when you're looking at a kid like Toohey or even other international prospects or other prospects at these global academies, like how much of a challenge is that, not just for you as somebody who analyzes recruits, but also for coaching staffs? Obviously, many of them are flying out there, which gives them an advantage. But how difficult is that to really be able to look at a kid like this or like other ones similar to him and be like, this is going to translate immediately in the ACC or SEC, or maybe it won't? Right.
A lot of them project out at least a year. Most of them, I would say. And then they, if it comes to fruition earlier than that, it's just the icing on the cake. But, guys with his level of skill set, reasonable minds can agree. Certain things. And, you look at the different nuances of his game, how quick he is. And, you look at the numbers and, how he's able to produce in given situations against shiftier, quicker guards. Who's he defending? And that's the biggest thing on the pro level. Who are you going to guard? Are you going to get blasted on the other end? All the fundamentals ain't mean nothing if your guy is dropping 30 on you. Right. So, I think the best thing about the global academies is it highlights the best players and puts them all together. It's like, hey, these are who they say are the best. It's almost like Peach Jam, right? Like you go to Peach Jam, it's like, okay, cool, one-stop shop. Okay, great. Right. So these are the best. Okay, cool. I'll pick from this litter, and so that's the strength of the global academies. Yeah, the best players go there.
And I remember you talking when we were talking about Dusty Stromer a few weeks ago. One of the things you talked about was that he made an all-star team at, I believe, the top 100 camp.
Yes.
And so it's like, not only did he make an all-star team here with he made an all-star team with other top 100 players. Like that stands out more than like, oh, he made an all-star game at even like this AAU thing or whatever it may be. Like that may not necessarily matter as much. There's a difference between being Mr. Illinois or Mr. Idaho, for example. It's just a difference in comparison of who you played.
Yeah, no, I say that all the time. A lot of people put when we go to the McDonald's All-American game every year, it's usually the practices where we see who shines. But honestly, I put a lot on the game too. Now there's no defense and stuff like that, but it's still the big stage. It's still the bright light. It's still national television. If you can step out there, that says a lot about your mentality. So I it's not like I'm saying, oh my, did you see he dropped 25 at the McDonald's All-American? Well, nobody played no defense. That's true. And that's true. They don't. Yeah. But, it's a mentality thing for me. So I put a few points on even all-star settings because, first of all, you made it. Then if you shined in it, you're starring among stars. Yeah, we got to give you a head nod for that for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, the next guy. All right, second segment coming up. Jason and I are going to look at a few other prospects the Zags have expressed interest in, including a 2025 prospect. But before we do that, I want to tell you all about Upside. From cringing at the pump to getting an eye-popping check at your favorite restaurant, inflation is hitting us all where it hurts. And it really hurts. That's why I started using Upside. Upside is an incredible app for anyone who buys gas, groceries, or dines out. With every purchase, I'm earning cash back thanks to Upside. The app is crazy easy to use, and there's no catch. To get started, download the free Upside app. Use my promo code LOCKED and get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Next, claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. Check in at the business, pay as usual with a credit card, and get paid. In comparison to credit card rewards or loyalty programs, you can earn 3 times more cash back with Upside. Upside users are earning more than $1 million every single week. That's part of why they have a 4.8 star rating on the App Store. Download the free Upside app and use promo code LOCKED to get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That's $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more using code LOCKED.
Yeah.
All right, the next guy that I want to talk about, we're going to move on all the way to the class of 2025. I believe this is the first 2025 prospect that the Zags have been connected to. It is at least the first name that I have seen. That is Jeremiah Fears from Joliet West High School in Illinois. He's the younger brother of Jeremy Fears, who is going to Michigan State. I know Michigan State has already showed interest here. It certainly seems like Tom Izzo would be quite happy to snatch up the pair here if he's capable of doing it. Again, high school sophomore, long ways away, but this kid has gotten a ton of interest from high major programs outside of Michigan State. Pretty much the whole Big Ten has showed some interest. I don't know how much you've seen this kid, but from what you have seen or what you know of him and his brother, like what kind of player is he going to be?
Yeah, and a lot of people look at, the projection of his brother and, a lot of times the younger sibling benefits from what the older sibling goes through, and they make the pivot where the to learn from different things and nuances, things like that. But he's tough. Jeremiah's tough. Super shifty, great vision. He almost could put you in a old school Chris Paul mold.
Oh yeah.
Just because of his vision and his ability to dictate the tempo and control the pace. But great vision. He scores on all 3 levels. He gets to his spots at will. And what I like about him is, he's great. Most point guards are great in the open floor.
Sure.
Especially at the high level. But a lot of them have trouble switching it and being patient in the half court set. But he seems to thrive in the half court set as well. And so that's one of the things that I think would stand out to me. And, he's a high motor guy, high energy guy. And that's what you want from your point guard. And then when he has 3 years left to play at high school level, which is crazy. But it's actually not as crazy because I was watching Cooper Flagg and Cameron Boozer. I was following them around Peace Jam because they're just that good.
Yeah.
So when it's to that level in the 2025 class, it makes sense. It makes a lot more sense.
It's funny you describe, I always love hearing your descriptions of prospects because I always jump to which Gonzaga players they most compare to. And I know that that's what many listeners do as well. And talking about point guards who are great at getting out in transition, but also can slow it down and run the half court offense. I mean, Andrew Nembhard was incredible at doing both of those things. I think he got so much attention for being a pick and roll expert and a mid-range scorer, but if you watch like the Memphis game in the tournament last year, like he crushed Memphis because of his ability to get out in transition. Like
yes, he did.
did.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, and Nolan Hickman, we certainly hope is going to be a similar player as well. So you talk about a guy like Jeremiah Fierce, like being able to do both those things is so critical in Gonzaga's offense.
No, 100%, 100%. And he definitely fits that mold. Again, he's got a long way to go, a lot of development, but you would imagine with a logical progression, he's only going to get better. So that's what, guys like you guys in Michigan State, has already offered. And I think that it's more so the projection because he's dominant now. And they're like, oh, geez, he might be, might be top 5 in that class before it's all said and done. He's tough. He's tough.
When you're talking about players who have this far to go, and you kind of answered this a little bit already, and I know that the brother situation does make it a little bit different because you have a little bit more physical projection that you can potentially see because of something like that. But when you talk to coaches or when you yourself are out there evaluating, like how much different is it evaluating a 2023 versus a 2025 at this stage? Like what do you look for differently? Is it a lot of size projection or is there more to it than that?
Yeah, it's a lot of size projection, but it's also so for me, I look at stuff that most people don't look like. I look at stuff given that if you're talented, okay, so I know you can do, you're probably gonna score it. I have 3 levels, but you have to say if it fits, right? Because it's so cliche to say. But I try and look at things that especially with younger players like body language. Like that's a big thing for me because I see how it translates in huddles. I see how it translates with coach interactions and stuff like that. And so I look at the player and see if he's a sulky type of guy, if he can take criticism. Does the coach get on him? If he doesn't, I assume that's for a reason.
Right.
And so I look at different things like that. Whereas a 2023 guy, I look at body language too. But at that point, if the body language is off as a now rising senior, then that's just that's not good. That's telling in and of itself. And so, but most kids are hip to that at this point, and especially on the bigger stages. So, if that is still an issue, then that's really telling, and that's what a lot of college coaches tell me. They don't even. I mean, okay, you had fun, but I'm looking at you in the huddle.
Right. That makes sense. Jason, one of the biggest talking points that has just come out recently is the potential for the NBA and the NBA Players Association to they're looking at changing things on the CBA. One of the things they're potentially talking about is lowering the draft age from 19 to 18. The latest that I saw says that while they're thinking about that, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're planning to eliminate the one and done rule, allow guys to go straight from the high school to the NBA. It certainly seems like that is the direction that things are headed, though. I'm curious, again, this is a very, very new story that just broke, but I'm curious kind of what your thoughts are on the potential direction that the NBA might be headed here and how this would obviously have a very significant impact on college basketball and also just the players that you check out on a daily basis.
Yeah. So I've talked to some, from what I'm hearing from NBA guys and guys in the know is that it could potentially happen for the 2024 guys.
Right.
So, I've talked to some 2024 players just to see where their minds are at with that. The funny thing is I'm old enough to remember. I was actually I think the last draft class was 2005 or 2006.
That sounds right. Yeah.
It was Amir Johnson. Right. I was at the NBA draft. I was at ESPN, the magazine, as an intern in 2004 when they had the most high school players in that draft. That was Dwight Howard and Sean Livingston and those guys. And so I remember that, right? So, but these guys, like especially the 2024 guys, they're like, wow, they haven't lived that. They can't point to when seeing,
That's
so they
crazy.
don't know anything but college, literally nothing. But people got to remember that, like these kids are too young to remember. That was 16 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So most of these guys are 16, 17, right? So that is I just wonder how that will impact them not having experienced that in any way. Only stories and different things. Like they don't know any of those guys. They're old guys. Those old guys. Get them out of here, right? So most of these kids have grown up like, oh, I want to go to Gonzaga. I want to go to Duke. I want to go to Carolina.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you want to go to the NBA? It's like, whoa. And so then
Yeah.
I mean, most players have egos, right? Top 10
yeah.
especially, right? And they have to. So I just wonder, it's almost like the NIL. We're gonna learn as we go.
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
And so I believe that, let's say it happens, right? I believe that top 5 players are probably going to take a look at it.
Yeah.
They're probably going to enter their name. The top 5 guys are probably going to enter. Just know that they're going to enter their name. And I just hope it's not the top 15. I mean, because at this point, we really got to be honest. Like, it is really just probably 3, maybe 3, depending on the class. Like 2023, all the NBA guys will tell you they feel like it's a weaker class.
Yeah.
The 2023 draft class. So it just depends, because if you look up and you're the number 1 player, but it's like, but am I ready for the NBA?
Right.
But then you say, well, I was going to go to the G League, so I was going to be a pro anyway.
Right.
So why not go be a pro in the NBA and earn a lot of money? But then, and here's another, and I'm just throwing you different curveballs. But then, back in I say back in our day, it makes me sound so old. Back in our day, when the high school guys went to the league, a lot of them would say the cliche, I got to help my family.
Right.
I gotta help my family, right? Well, the pushback now is, well, you can help your family at Gonzaga.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we got you. There's a 6-figure, certainly a 5-figure NIL deal on the table. And we have multiple, of those for you. So we can help your family in the year that you come here, or the 2 years you come here. So it's not a money thing anymore with NIL. So it'll be very interesting. If and when they change that rule, it'll be different than it's ever been, because now we got money in college. You can get that money in college. You can get to the bag, obviously, in the NBA. That's more consistent, higher salaries, obviously, through the roof. But so it'll be a lot of variables that we've never seen before that are in play. So I'm curious to see. I know that some people are going to make some really bad decisions. So it's just going to happen. It's just going to happen. The problem on the college end, not to cut you, the problem on the college end, it's going to be the roster uncertainty, right? Because I think they're going to probably give them till May. Yeah. Just think, you guys, let's say you guys get Nas Cunningham, right? He's committed to Gonzaga in November, right? And so now, and he's going to be a guy that's going to look at, that's a fact. Yeah, he's going to look at the NBA. So then he's going to say, well, I'm going to test it out. Now you're like, oh, God. Bro, you coming or not? You know what I'm saying? You're supposed to be doing summer workouts right now. You got my head blowing up. And so I just want all the coaches to start investing in Excedrin and Advil, because it's going to be rough.
As if Mark Few needs more of that, because they already had the challenges with 3 guys potentially going to the NBA last year. I can't imagine having that same situation with Timmy and Strother and Rasir Bolton, and also having like a high-level incoming guy who may or may not go to the NBA. Like, that's just such a disaster.
Well, just think about it from you guys' perspective. This rule's in place. Jalen's not coming. Chad is not coming. Those two are not. They never play for you. You know what I'm saying?
Not a chance.
So that's the unfortunate part, because from that point on, those guys are not coming. They're not coming. Top 5, they're not coming. Really, top 8 to 10, they're probably. This is where the bad decisions are going to come in. You know what I'm saying? So I think top 5. I get top 5. Yeah, I get it.
You look at last year's group. I mean, there's 3 freshmen who went really, really early. I don't think any of those 3 guys would have gone to college. Paolo Banchero, Jabari Smith, Chet Holmgren. We could have arguments all day long about whether any of those guys should have then gone to college. Certainly people feel that Chet Holmgren still isn't ready, which is inaccurate. I think the only one who physically, without a doubt, unquestionably looks ready to go is Paolo Banchero, who's just built like an absolute freak. Not a lot of 18-year-olds look like that. So that's part of it. But yeah, it makes you wonder, like, how, like you said, guys are going to make mistakes. And I wonder, like, because the NBA has this relationship with the G League, because there is the ability, like, some guys are probably going to think, well, I could go straight to the G League, or I could go to the draft, get drafted. If things don't work out, I'll get sent to the G League. I'll play down there. I wonder how much that thought process is going to be out there, and then how much that's actually going to have an impact, because if you go to the NBA, you are maybe, let's say, a late lottery or even a mid first round pick as a high school kid. You get sent down to the G League. All of a sudden you have this pressure, you have this like weight of expectation on you. You only have a couple of years on your rookie contract. Yeah. Whereas if you go straight to the G League or if you go to college, and people are going to point to the Jaden Ivey stories of guys who blow up as sophomores and explode their draft stock.
Right.
Here in Spokane, everybody's hoping Hunter Salas is going to have the same story. It certainly seems plausible. And I can understand why you'd look at that story and think that's much better than spending your first 2 years as an NBA player, you know, split between the G League and feeling like the fan base is mad at you, which is definitely going to be something that we're going to see that happen. And I wonder how much that will impact people's decisions.
Yeah, I mean, all those
it's going to be interesting for sure. And we're talking about like the NIL thing
that are in play, man. It's going to be wild. It's going to be wild.
Yeah. It's going to be absolutely wild. And I think the NIL thing throws such a wrench into it. Oscar Tshiebwe, great story with him, how much money he has raised for himself and for his family by using NIL, a guy who 30 years ago would probably be a very, very good NBA player already, because the league liked guys like that. They don't really like guys like that anymore. So he's back. Armando Bacot's back. Of course, Timmy's back. Those guys are making big money. Certainly, if you're that kind of high school prospect, it might make some sense to go to college. But the appeal of going straight to the NBA, pretty darn hard to ignore.
That's true. Very true. Very true. And at the end of the day, it really boils down to who's advising you.
Yeah.
True. And so my experience is that most people are not realistic.
Yeah,
with elite players, they're not.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm confident some bad decisions are.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of cautionary tales.
Yeah, no doubt. Yep. Jason, thank you so much for coming on the show once again. A fantastic conversation. As always, looking forward to chatting again soon about some more Gonzaga prospects.
Looking forward to it, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, that is going to do it for me today. Thanks again to Jason Jordan, as always, for coming on the show, giving us some more information about the upcoming Gonzaga recruits that they are looking at. Don't forget to check out my new website for more written content at scorezagscore.com, and look out for more fun stuff coming later this week right here on the Locked On Zags podcast. Available wherever you get your podcasts, available on YouTube as well. Go hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so yet. Trying to get to 1,000 subscribers before Gonzaga tips off the season against North Florida in early November. We're very close, so if you have not done so yet, just go hit that subscribe button. And finally, thank you again to all of you who have made Locked On Zags your first listen of the day. Locked On WCC doesn't exist yet, but you can get more informed on the West Coast happenings by making Locked On Pac-12 your second listen of the day. Host Spencer McLaughlin and the local experts of Locked On take you across the Pac-12 in 30 minutes, 5 times per week. All right, thank you all for listening, and go Zags.